In this interview with Dr. Sarah Zaldivar, I talk through how carnivore can support gut function and gut health. And when carnivore doesn't work enough, how there are oftentimes things such as environmental illness, such as SIRS or mold illness or chronic Lyme, and what to do about it. And I also share how I used to be a former rapper. No, I'm just kidding, but that I do love rap music. And so we talk a little bit about that as well. Hey guys, my name is Judy Cho, and I'm board certified in holistic nutrition. And I have a private functional medicine practice where we focus on root cause healing. And we often start with the Carnivore Cures all meat elimination diet. This interview is when I went on Dr. Sarah Zaldivar's podcast. We talked about a lot of things related to carnivore, gut function, when carnivore doesn't work enough, and what to do about it, and all things holistic health. I love Sarah because she is a person that will push the envelope in terms of what is normal constructs or what is accepted in society. So I have all this love for Sarah, but if you watch the interview, you get to see a lot more of our stances, why we share a lot more than just diet, and how healing is possible for people, but figuring out what makes sense for you. Let's get right to the interview.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, I am so happy to be chatting with Judy Cho from Nutrition with Judy. Hi, Judy. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me.
So you have the Carnivore Summit, right? And we just filmed, well, actually, it was a little while ago that we filmed a little something for the Carnivore Summit. So I'm excited about that. And you must be very busy right now, right? When is it going to go live?
It's gonna go live on Monday, June 19th, and it's for a full week. So there's like 6 to 7 videos that release every day for people to watch for 24 hours. I don't know when this is releasing, but it might already have passed. I don't know. But yeah, it's starting on Monday and it's super exciting. It is a lot of work, but we've learned a lot. It is a lot of work, but it's exciting.
You do this every year, right?
We'll see. Our plan was to do it every year, but it definitely took a lot more time than we had expected. So, but it's always hardest the very first time. So maybe now that we've done it, maybe it'll be easier. So the hope is that we'll do it annually, but it is TBD.
Right. Well, that's fantastic. I'm so excited for it, and it's free for everybody. There are some bonus add-ons that you can purchase, but everybody can watch all of the main interviews for free. And so that's super exciting and so great for what you're doing for the carnivore community. So thank you for that.
No, it's exciting. I feel that when people go and search carnivore online, there's so much different opinions, and that's okay to have different opinions. But I think the crux of carnivore is no carbs. And unfortunately, the big movement where carnivore is with carbs and it's fruit and honey. And I don't think that's necessarily, well, it's fine if you want to add that over time, if you don't have a sugar addiction, if you can metabolically handle it, but most people in America cannot. And I think the issue is that when people search what is a carnivore diet and you see like Rogan talk about meat and fruit, and then you think that's the carnivore diet, and you don't fully get to healing because let's say you have a fungal overgrowth or you struggle with candida, well, adding fruit is not going to help that. Or you may just not get to the deepest level of healing. And then you say, no, carnivore doesn't work. I'd rather still eat like a paleo-ish diet. And so I think that if we do a summit and help other medical practitioners see, oh, there's all these PhDs and doctors and researchers and scientists that are willing to back a summit that's carnivore, then maybe there is some merit to this and I should look into it. And if you watch all the reels we made for Carnivore Summit by itself and just go through all of them, it's so powerful in all of these doctors and you and so other PhDs and other researchers saying carnivore is so powerful because of XYZ reason. It just validates where we stand as a diet. And hopefully then if there are practitioners that are working in their clinics and things aren't moving the needle, if gut healing is not moving with probiotics and just XYZ things, then maybe they're willing to start a carnivore diet for their patients because there's things like the summit. And then additionally, I really think just we need more community, right? We see, I mean, you and I were talking for a while and we feel more connection and laughter and community of, oh my gosh, I'm eating the same way as you. I totally get it. And I totally understand the struggles with people that are non-carnivores in my life. And I think all of this is so important. And so I used to think that someone will eventually do it and I will support them as the secondary person. And I just am at a point where I'm like, no, if I want this change and it's not happening, then I'm just gonna. And I think we need to take that ownership of, if we want the change, share carnivore with your community, lead things and do things, because I mean, I'm just one little person, but we were able to get all of our community together, do this summit, and now we're going to show the world that this diet should be legitimized.
I love everything you just said. Yes. Carnivore is definitely growing and is such a tight knit community. I feel like we're all excited about it because I think we come to it after being failed by the medical system. And so, you know, we have an extra level of motivation to push it, not push it like directly, but like to push the movement and support the movement. And that's why you see such close connection between the members of this community. And I'm just happy to see it growing. So that's fantastic. Let's start with anything recent since we last spoke, anything recent, that any recent changes you've made with your diet, or is it still basically animal based?
No, I've been eating. So I was keto probably 7 years ago now. And then I was strict carnivore. So only meat for the first 3 years of my 6 year carnivore journey. And now I just occasionally will have, maybe it's a keto treat, maybe it's even like real a little bit. But generally speaking, it's just mostly meat. If there's like a pickle, it's not even really a pickle. I don't know why I'm saying that. But if there's like a little bit of veggies, if I want it, I will, but I definitely will notice bloat more the next day, or I'll feel a little bit more swelling on water retention.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just become just who I am, of the way I eat, that I don't even think twice of what else can I eat other than meat. I go downstairs and then I eat my meat that's available. And then it's just, food for me has just become fuel. And obviously, if you eat yummy steaks at a restaurant, it's like the flavors might be slightly different. But I don't think in general that it will ever change, because it's just works. And then why change thing that's not broken?
Yeah, and I love that you said that because that's what food freedom is, right? It's not thinking, what else am I gonna have? Every time you have those thoughts, that's addiction talking. It's not really your hunger, physiological hunger, right?
Yeah, I struggled with an eating disorder for over a decade, and I used to think, so if we had to go out for dinner, it would initially immediately give me anxiety, and then I would look up the menu and like, what can I eat that it's not going to trigger me to want to binge and then purge.
Yeah.
If I already had a big lunch and I'm like, gosh, we have to go to dinner, like how am I going to get away with not eating a lot? And then it was always these thoughts. And then sometimes even with my girlfriends, when we would go out to lunch, something would trigger me, and immediately I'm like, I have to leave. I have to leave, and I have to go through my eating disorder routines. And so then I would say, oh my gosh, I got a text, I have to go, or my work is calling me. And I would just create these fake lies to
Right.
go, and then go to the store and do my deeds. And it was just, my vicious cycle of my life was dedicated to this eating disorder, where all I would think about is, when is my next meal? What can I eat? What have I already eaten? Calorie counting, and was I good today? Was I bad today? And even when I had my first child, like I was stuck in my head of, how fast am I going to lose this weight? I have to bounce back from my baby weight. And it was so torturous to live there. And I was plant-based. I was not eating any meat. I was a good human for not eating meat, but I was the most depressed, most eating disordered than I ever was. And I couldn't even fulfill my roles as a mom oftentimes. And now when I eat meat, like there's a level of freedom. So when people say I switched one eating disorder for another, they don't know what it is to be depressed or struggle with an eating disorder, where I'm going to moderate and I'll just have one piece of pie. And then if I eat that one piece, now I'm eating the whole pie. And people don't understand that level of struggle you have, that turmoil, that anxiety you feel, where you're literally white knuckling, so that you're like, no, no, just be good, Judy, just today, just try to fight it, just try. And then you feel all that anxiety and stress inside you. And I never go through that now. I never think of, oh, it's 2 or 3, or I need to eat now. I need to fuel my body. I need to make sure I'm getting enough protein and make sure I'm getting enough fat without overdoing the fat that I'm gaining weight. But it's just this, I don't ever have these where my husband's asking me what's for dinner. I'm like, you always ask for dinner. I don't know. We'll just figure it out, right? Because it's just fuel for me. Whereas before, I knew exactly what I was eating. And then if I struggled, I knew what exactly I had to do to get the food out of my system.
Wow. This literally almost made me cry because it just reminded me of everything that I also went through. I mean, exact same thoughts, feelings, behaviors. And it's just pure torture. Instead of
Right.
focusing on all the other things we could be focusing on in our lives, we're just literally stuck in this lower level thing, which is like survival, just food, you know? Food and a roof on top of your head shouldn't be those kinds of things that you're thinking constantly about, you know? So I am so grateful for people like you and everybody in the carnivore community, because of you, I was able to find this information. Because let me know, let me tell you, they did not even go over the basics of any of these diets, whether it's keto or carnivore. And to this day, they fight it tooth and nail in the traditional academic world. It is looked at as a fad, it's frowned upon. You're actively discriminated against, and we're actively being attacked by dietitians, by the traditional academic world. So I'm
It's
grateful
crazy.
for
So
people like you.
let me tell you something. So we were trying to do advertisements for the summit because we just got all our collateral a little bit later. So the advertising window was much smaller for us in our team. So it's the first time ever we're trying to use Facebook ads. We've never done it before. And we're trying to find, so there's categories and you can find vegan, vegetarian, all of the different nuances about vegan in so many different words.
But no
We try to
carnivore.
do keto. No, there's not even one for keto. So
Uh,
there's like ketogenic, like
just
I think
ketosis.
ketones, the science, but there is no keto diet. And so we're like, no, this
I don't.
is so conspiracy theory. So we started searching right wing versus left wing people. You can't do an advertising for Joe Rogan, but you could do some for the left wing celebrities. And it's just so wild that you cannot do keto diets as an advertisement or carnivore. You could do like meat cooking or meat grilling. But when it comes to vegan diets and vegetarian diets, there's so much. And it's just, we can't even advertise, like give Facebook money to advertise our summit because there's not even a proper category to put it in. I mean, if you're looking at grilling recipes, why would you want to watch a carnivore summit, right? But that's the only place it would show up. And it's just so sad because you're right, there is, everything is against our community. I mean, we all want the corporations to go plant-based and save energy by going more plant-based or having schools have meatless Mondays. And it's just incorrect information. And that's why I think these summits and people like you sharing that, hey, I am educated, I have a PhD, I am a nutritionist, and I'm sharing the benefits of meat and that actually sugar is really an addiction. Like, it is so important that you're out there sharing this stuff because the mainstream content, advertising, everything is saying that what we're sharing is unbelievably wrong. You're either going to have a heart attack or you're going to have colon disease or cancer.
It makes me laugh, but you're so true. That is exactly what we're fighting up against. And thank you so much for your kind words. But I ran across the same exact challenge as you, and it drove me nuts because there were times where I would want to, run some ads on my Instagram. It's just not a category. They don't let you target only a carnivore audience. So it's okay, despite what they might try to put in terms of obstacles in front of us, one by one, success story after another, food freedom story after another, it's just, they can't stop it. It is our species specific diet, and we're going back to it and we're finding it, and there's no stopping that.
Yeah, and I think that's why the power of stories is so popular. It's so big. It's so important. It's how humans have existed for so long. You teach your children, don't touch the fire because Grandpa Joe ended up touching the fire, and you tell a story, and then that's how they learn, and that's how you remember. And it's so powerful that if I share or you share all the science about carnivore, people remember a little bit. But if their neighbor lost 100 pounds and said, how did you do it? And they said, oh, it's crazy, but I just ate meat. The desire, because you've seen your neighbor lose the weight and then change their life, you are more inclined by that more than any science that somebody shares. And that's why I always tell the community, we have to share our stories. I'm not saying to push it down someone's throat, but if someone says, wow, you have more energy, wow, your skin is clear, wow, you've lost weight, you look better, what is your secret? And it's
Yeah.
like, I know it's kind of crazy, but I did an all meat elimination diet. And that is power right there, because that will stick compared to some science and, you know, nowadays no one trusts science, but
Yeah.
it's more valuable sharing a story of change and healing than saying this science person told me that meat is good, right?
It is so true. The power of story, right? This is why we were talking about entertainment earlier, right? And I was talking about rapping and the power of entertainment and influence and all that kind of stuff. And it's true because in entertainment, they use a lot of, they use storytelling as a major element for influence, for impact, to move people. Because when you move people, that's when the change happens, when they're feeling that emotion. So yeah, spot on. Which I wanted to leave that till the end. Should I leave that till the end? Or should we just go for it right now and then
Go for it.
talk about the science? Let's just go for it. Since we're talking about what I wanted to do, we talked so much, like maybe for an hour before our podcast, about what I want, what I am doing actually. It's so beautiful to say that, because not that long ago I was still saying I want to do it, and now it's like it's actually happening with the songs and, you know, writing and filming. And so you mentioned that you actually also are a hip hop fan, and you grew up in LA, right?
Yeah. So, no, I'm just kidding.
So tell me about this other side of Judy that we don't know.
Yeah. So one thing I'll say is when I first came on the scene, I was really sick, right? I was plant-based. I listened to, I went to Berkeley, so I was super into that plant-based movement. Meat is so bad for you. Supported PETA, PETA. And so then when I healed and I had to eat my own words, I wanted to convey, how can I get the message out there? Because I was a consultant and that's what we did. We created presentations, and without it affecting, well, who is this person sharing the content? Are they a doctor? Are they this? And I was just a normal woman out there. And so I decided to do graphics without showing who I was or anything about me, because I didn't want my lack of a degree in science to cause people to question what I'm sharing. So I try to just make it science, more education, and less about me. And I've built my brand around that. But there's like so much more to me. And obviously I share a little bit more about my life now, because I think people recognize that my content is not just like fake stuff, right? But so I grew up in Los Angeles, and my brother, my older brother, was a huge hip hop person. So we listened to Eazy-E and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, and so Power 106, I don't know if people are from Los Angeles, but that was my favorite station, and it was hip hop. And so when I was little, before we had, you know, Apple Music, I would listen to the radio or the cassette tapes, and I would press play and then write down every single lyric of Bone Thugs so that I could jigga rap. And then it's and so to this day I still have my old iPad or iPod music thing, and I'll listen to hip hop and I'll rap, and my kids look at me like, who is this person, right? So I still rap. I cannot make my own music. For my brother's wedding speech, I said, my name is Judy and I'm here to say that I eat Fruity Pebbles. And so that was like the only rap. It was a total joke because I can't rap outside of the songs that have been created. But I love that. And I don't share, you're right, like I don't share many other facets of me, because I think the bigger thing for me was I knew the secret about carnivore and the diet. And it's so important that I am taken seriously, because this diet changed my life. And how can I most effectively help others without it seeming fake? And so I didn't know how to share it. And I'm going to be honest, like being Asian, there's not a lot of Asians in the wellness space. So if you can identify to me because you're Caucasian and I'm Asian, so maybe my graphics the science can share the authenticity and the realness of this diet. And so that's why I went that way without showing a lot of me. And nowadays I try to show a little bit more, but it's still harder for me because I try to make it more education. But you're absolutely right. People connect more with the stories, right? When I share the heartbreak I had with getting into a mental institute for my illness and the diet and all that, people connect more to that than when I share like a picture of a ribeye and its nutrients. So I totally get that. But
yeah.
Hey guys, just a really quick interruption. If you notice, we don't really run ads on this YouTube channel. And just being fully candid, instead of making money on external sponsors, we really wanted to share more about our functional medicine practice so that if you ever need it, you know that what we offer and what we can provide in terms of service and products. If you didn't know, our private practice has one-on-one sessions. We have packages. We do group calls with SIRS and with mind body or nervous system regulation. And we also do a lot of functional tests. Some people do a complete wellness panel with us. So once a year, they get a detailed, comprehensive blood work to see how their health is doing. We also do functional tests such as stool tests to see if you have parasites or candida or H. pylori. We also do a lot of the Dutch urine as well as saliva tests to make sure that your hormones and thyroid is functioning well. Our flagship is our symptom burden, where we really trust the innate wisdom in our bodies. And so we are trying to see what symptoms do you have, because oftentimes a combination of symptoms is related to a specific system. We focus on gut health, where we try to get people's gut healing, because most of our immune system is in our gut. If you make your own body stronger, you will be a lot more resilient to everything that is in our toxic world. We believe in wellness for all, and not everyone can afford to work with us. So we provide a lot of free guides, free ebooks, free downloads, free tactical things to get you healing in your wellness journey. We also write comprehensive, detailed articles. For example, why a carnivore diet may have lower T3 markers, but may be in fact okay. I hope that the content I share is enough for you to get healing. But if the needle is not moving enough with a carnivore diet, with lifestyle changes, with mind body work, if it's not moving enough when you are working alone, just know that we have the services to support you when and if that day comes. Because we are holistic health, we also have a prescriber. So if you are on thyroid medications or hormone medications, or you need medications for SIRS, we are able to walk you through the process. Our goal is to get you off most of your medications. All right, guys, thank you for being part of this community. Let's get back into the video.
Yeah, and I think once you start doing it more and more, you're going to become more and more comfortable. And I think that then people trust also people more when they know everything about them as much as they can, you know? And so even the science information that you're putting out, they will even trust it even more. And yeah, I think like what we were talking about beforehand, like I'm just trying to push you to post more of you, right? Like,
yeah, I
have it. Yeah. No,
and I get it. I mean, I think whenever I meet people in person, they're like, your education and stuff is so serious, and I seem so serious, but I'm not that. I mean, I am serious, but I'm not that serious. I mean, I dance and joke around with my kids, and we play and we do silly things, but I know I don't come off like that, because I'm like, I am a super serious person online. But again, it was because my end goal was, I need people to take carnivore seriously. And if they're going to take me seriously when I'm just a average next door neighbor girl that you may see, how are you going to take me serious unless maybe I just share the content? And so now I get it. I get like I should share more of my story. And yeah, I definitely think I'm a little bit more fun in person, which is like the opposite. I feel like people are more fun sometimes on camera than they are in real life. But yeah, it's just, I get it. I have to balance that, the science plus my real life story.
Yeah. And the more you do it, the more you realize, oh, this is great. Because, you know, I had the same fear also before I started posting the rap songs. It's like Carnivore is already like, you're already on walking on thin ice, you know? And now it's like, and she's a rapper. You know, so but what I realize is like, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is how much value are you bringing for your audience and the community. The more value you're bringing, that's the only thing that matters. And you obviously are constantly, you know, providing value. So I think that's really the only thing that matters, the only thing that people care about. And even no, sorry, go ahead.
No, one thing I was going to say is, just seeing your account, it's shown me that you don't have to always be super serious, right? So like that was one thing I learned from my Cutting Against the Grain podcast. I was always trying to be this polished, sciencey person, and when my co-host was trying to, bring up more personal things, it was so hard for me to share stuff when I'm super extroverted. But And it's just, you're right. It's just when I see you share, it's like, oh, she's sharing. And I loved it. I love that you shared this rap song. And I distinctly remember hearing the song, and I shared it with my husband because it was so exciting.
I
Because
love
my
it.
husband likes to rap. Like him and my brother used to just flow naturally on their own. And I'm like, how do you guys
Wow.
do that? That's amazing. Right. And I know it's so weird, but, and seeing that with you, it's just like, oh, like we should just, your confidence in it, it just shows me that we should just be our true selves, and ideally have the courage to just share multifacets, because you're right, we are not just our diet, right? I have a normal family in Austin, Texas. My two kids goes to non-traditional schools, and they don't identify as carnivores. Most of the moms there don't identify me just as a carnivore. I am Caleb and Aiden's mom, and other things about me. And I just think you're right. It is important, because then when people see our content, it also normalizes, okay, these are normal humans. They're not living in a cave eating meat. They're normal people, just have normal aspirations. And they also tend to advocate for meat and know the way to eat is ideally meat, so that they can thrive and then do all these other things in their life. That
So
makes sense.
true. Yeah, so true. And I've noticed too is that you start attracting a whole other audience as well when you share the other elements. So now I have a lot of people that follow me that I know they couldn't care less about my diet or about the carnivore diet. They're just following me because of the rap and the songwriting and the music, you know? Or a lot of photographers follow me so that we can
Right.
collaborate on photo shoots, because I do a lot of that too, and fashion. And so you open up now a whole other niche, a whole other audience, you know? And it's just it actually becomes easier too to build that brand, you know, as opposed to becoming a hindrance. So
Yeah. And then as the rap people, your photography, the modeling side of people watch your content, when you then talk about meat, they're more open to it because they already like you. So I can see how that would be multifaceted. So
yes.
I definitely agree. I think it's so important.
Love it. Love that we talked about that. And I'm just so happy that I have a fellow rapper, rapper lover in the
My
house.
kids are practicing beatboxing, so maybe one
They
day
do.
they'll beatbox for your
Oh
rap.
my gosh. I have to hire them when they're
My
teenagers.
kids are rapping, like literally they love to rap. It's just, I don't know,
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't know what it is about our family, but we love hip hop for
It's
sure.
it's because LA too, you know. I think the LA and just being exposed to it when both parents and their uncle, you know, everybody is a rapper, loves rap, then you grow to love that type of music, you know. It's just
Sure.
exposure is huge. Love it. Okay,
Makes sense.
let us talk about something that I saw recently with, and I don't want to say a client, it was more of like a friend of mine who's doing
Okay.
carnivore. And we thought at first that he developed keto rashes, but it turned out not to be a keto rash, because for a very long time, you know, he stuck to the diet, perfect, eating everything. And then the only thing that cleared it was when he added a soil-based organism, spores or
Mm.
soil-based organism, a type of probiotic, to his regimen. And literally within 2 weeks, the psoriasis or whatever you want to call it cleared up. I mean, it had gotten progressively worse and worse for months, and then it literally went away. And I was blown away. I'm like, maybe we're missing that, because we don't have that contact with nature on carnivore the way when, you know, it's not that we need the plants, it's just that we used to eat a carnivore diet in nature and with our feet in the soil. And now we are living a sanitized life. And the only potential source was in the past some vegetables, was whatever probiotics were still on them from the soil. You take that out, maybe we do need some SBOs, or alternatively spend time in nature. Do you have any experience, or have you come across something like that?
Yeah, so when I first was carnivore, the idea of supplements was frowned upon, and I think there's still some of that remnants. And I think people thought, well, meat has all the nutrition, meat has all the even the probiotics, or maybe you drink a little bit of blood, or maybe it wasn't that, but maybe it was more like eat more of the meat raw, and then you'll get everything, and you don't need anything else. And I come from nutritional therapy school where that's not always the case, where if you have bad gut function or you have bad gut dysbiosis, how are you going to fix that with just meat? And you can a lot if you reduce the noise. But let's say, for example, and this will be specific for probiotics, if you've taken antibiotics most of your life, you had an ear infection, you would get certain things that you're always just taking antibiotics, or you take the antibiotic creams, your bacteria in your gut is just much less than if you were to support it with extra probiotics. And so that's where we sell a probiotic kit where if you've ever been on antibiotics or if you've been born a C-section, it's just giving more of the strains that are still there, but maybe there's just less of that. It's just giving an addition to your body. And one other thing is, if you're taking antibiotics a lot, you can also increase the load of fungus in your body, right? So people that struggle with candida or jock itch, or sometimes it's the what's it called, the seborrheic, the dandruff from that. I was trying to think of the scientific term, but
dermatitis, yeah.
Dermatitis, yeah. Anyway, so I should have just said dandruff. But so the point is, it's all of these things are actually a fungal overgrowth. And so what happens is, when you're taking antibiotic, it kills your bad and it kills your good. And so what then happens is you then increase the ability for the fungus to thrive in your system. And then if you happen to live in moldy areas, then it just worsens that effect. So when you have that, that's where the probiotics can be a support, so that then it starts, the soil-based specifically is able to bypass your digestive system, the acidicness of your stomach acid, and make it to your intestines. And then it will help reduce the load of the bad bacteria. And so will do that fight with some keystone strains. And then secondly, it will help replenish some of the good that is either lacking or missing. And we do so much gut function testing in our practice. And so I see so many GI maps. We could talk about some of the fiber stuff, but we see a lot of different people's, they may be low in a certain key strain. And so then when they take the probiotics, it helps. And the biggest people we've noticed, the biggest, most rapid change is with children. So they'll have like eczema all over their skin, and they're eating animal based, or they're eating certain just little bits of fruit. And the parents are stressing because the kid is just itchy everywhere, reacting to things. And then they get on the soil-based probiotics, and then shortly after, their eczema improves. And so that's where I started recommending, like, I wish the carnivore meat only diet fixed everything. You don't need other supplements. But when you have a private practice and you work with people and they challenge you, that's where what I'm going to share is going to come out from. And what we found is, a lot of people have been on rounds of antibiotics. A lot of people get imbalances in their gut, or they've traveled and they've had traveler's diarrhea and their microbiota is shifted. And when we see people use the probiotics, it shifts. It helps some of the good gut bugs live and kills off some of the bad. And so I think it's a little silly when we think carnivore fixes everything. If some people need the probiotics, that's okay. Now, I don't think it's just that we're not eating plants. I think our plants are so altered. Yes, some of them will have some of the stuff from the soil, but unfortunately they use so much glyphosate and pesticides and herbicides that I just wonder, the glyphosate specifically kills a lot of bacteria. So even if you think you're getting some of the dirt and stuff, maybe you're not getting enough because it's being killed. And I know that people say, well, then just eat the organic, but a lot of these GMO farms are right next to organic farms. So you don't know for sure if you're getting all the good gut bugs. What I'll tell you is, the brands that we work with for the soil-based, most of them are not carnivore. So that means that people on paleo diets and keto diets and plant-based diets, they still need these probiotics. So it's not just a specific to carnivore. I think generally we are surrounded by so many toxins. And so the average person kind of needs probiotics at this point to just support our gut function. And there's been studies where they'll go to like indigenous tribes and they'll look at their strains. They have like 300, and then the average person in just the modern world has like 100. And maybe some of those extra strains, it's just so new to know for sure, but maybe some of the extra strains will help us. And it's like $40, or just try it. And if it makes you feel better, then why not?
So I think everybody's thinking right now, okay, so do you recommend that everybody takes a soil-based probiotics just as a general recommendation? And if so, what is there a specific brand that's better?
So I don't recommend it to everybody, but if somebody's been on antibiotics and they have gut imbalances, even on carnivore, then yes, then that's when I do. So it's like this. I think of everything as like a yes or no decision tree, and a lot of the people that come to us, it's are you carnivore? And if they're strict carnivore, and then the next question is, do you still have gut imbalances? And if they're like, yes, I still have loose stools. My whole life I've struggled with gut imbalances. Then the questions are, have you ever taken antibiotics? Yes, I've taken antibiotics. Then we usually get them on. The reason we do soil based is because, again, compared to like the lactobacillus, the enterococcus, those sometimes can die off on the gut. The studies show that they work while you're taking it, but so they're transient, but when you don't take it, they no longer work. So while you're working it, just like Tylenol works while you're taking it, it helps to reduce the pain, even though it's not ideal. But these other probiotics will work while you're taking it, but that means you have to kind of take it forever. Whereas soil based, they tend to bypass the stomach acid and the die off, and they actually work. There's things called like quorum sensing, where they can sense like the bad bacteria is out and then they'll work. And there's studies that show that improvement. So the ideal is that you take it for a short period, and then maybe you take maintenance dose. Maybe you take it we personally, our family takes it like once every 2 years, because we're animal based. We don't need to take it often. We try not to use antibiotics. We don't use hand sanitizers. I mean, hand sanitizers are like low dose antibiotics essentially. So we don't take any of those. We don't use like wipes that sanitize and kill things, so that we have like natural microbiome. And occasionally, if I notice my kids are getting eczema all of a sudden, we'll go on a round of probiotics.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think
then,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, the last thing that I didn't answer is you asked about products. So we partnered several years ago with the microbiome labs because they were the first soil based. And I'm sure by now there's so many different, I'm just going to be wholly honest, I have not done research into the other ones, but I know that they were one of the first soil based probiotics. In the 4 years now we've been working with clientele, I would say most people benefit. There's a few small subset, maybe 5%, that do react. I also wonder, is it die off, right? So is it that you've taken the probiotics that then kill off the bad, that then there's like a little war going on in your gut, and your immune system is not able to handle that? So there is a small subset that happens too, but generally speaking, the overarching feedback for microbiome labs is positive. Otherwise, I wouldn't carry it. But I don't know if there's other companies now that are as good, because I just haven't done the research.
Fantastic, fantastic. And constipation seems to be something that keeps coming up. How do you deal, and what do you think is the biggest advice you can give the audience?
The most times I see constipation is eating too many lean meats, maybe not drinking enough salt. So I wouldn't say salt. When I say drink salt, I mean Soleil water. But if you're not having enough electrolytes to stimulate the peristalsis and to just get things flowing, and then not eating enough fat, but then overall not eating enough, period. So those are the most common ways. There's sometimes illnesses that also occur. Maybe the microbiome needs support, as we talked about, but those are the main ones. So make sure you're eating enough calories, make sure you're getting sufficient fat to stimulate the bile and to get the gut moving, and then make sure that you're getting enough electrolytes. So some people just don't drink enough water. You think of it, your intestines don't have like a natural mechanism that's just has it moving. You have to drink water, and there is peristalsis, but it requires something to happen in the gut for then the intestines to know, oh, we need to move, and we need to. So even walking can help, right? So if you're just stagnant, I mean, me just sitting here, literally my gut is not moving at all, right? So you want to make sure you do those things. Our community has more, we get a few constipation issues, but it's normally more of the loose stools, but those are the main reasons. So looking at your diet, making sure you get enough, and then maybe you need more fat, but I wouldn't go towards the butter because people have a tendency to be sensitive to dairy. I would do more animal fat. So like maybe eating a ribeye versus like a leaner steak.
Love that. Fantastic. And also carnivore rashes, I think we kind of covered that. I think it might be oxalate, right, dumping, or it might be just that you need those soil-based organisms. Is there anything else I'm missing with the keto or carnivore rashes?
Yeah, the other thing I would think of is fungal rash. So is it that now that your body is detoxing, if you think of the immune system as like one big bucket and it has to handle all these things, and so your immune system will prioritize many things first so you don't die. One of the first things it will support is making sure that your blood sugar is balanced. So then once you're carnivore and your blood sugar is relatively balanced, and then you're not eating plants, so less or proteins coming in that are making your gut sensitive, or that your immune system has to react to these different weird proteins coming in, then your body can say, oh, there's less coming in. Maybe we can detox some of the toxins in our fat or in our organs. And so it may start releasing. So let's say you had excess fungal, which is from like fungal overgrowth, not bacteria or not a virus, that might start manifesting. And it's not that the diet is bad, but that your diet is clean. So your body's like, yay, we could start detoxing. And you may have a Herxheimer reaction, or a reaction of your body is now trying to clean up so quickly. And that could also be the same for oxalates. So it might be that you have extra oxalates. Where I differ a little bit with Sally, I love her, I think she's a wonderful person, is that when you're like 2-3 years carnivore and people still think they're oxalate poisoning, I don't think that's true. I personally, in my practice, have found it's usually something else. It's not just the oxalates.
Fantastic. Okay. What are some of the other testing that you use in your practice, outside of obviously the diet? Like, what are some additional tests that you generally run?
So we do, when people work with us, we do a symptom burden analysis. So that's just based on your symptoms. What are you feeling today and what severity? Then we do that. And then we see like what organs are probably being affected. And so we try to do a more economical way that way. And so we'll then do like a supplement protocol for this person. Sometimes people are missing digestive enzymes or hydrochloric acid to even break down their meat. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, we have people based on that symptom burden analysis that shows they need a protein, they have a protein deficiency, even though they're on a carnivore diet.
Wow.
And it's likely either they're not eating enough, which is very common, especially in older women, or it's that they're not breaking down the nutrients, like it's just they're pooping it out of their system. So we do that. And then when that doesn't move the needle enough, our next step is often, if it's the gut related, we will do a qPCR stool test or like a GI map. And we do an analysis on, do you have parasites in your stool? What's the balance of your microbiome? What's your fiber? And so this is where I was going to bring up the fiber. I know people are always like, how are you going to support your short chain fatty acids without eating fiber? Let me tell you, from the hundreds of stool tests we've done, it is all over the map with carnivore. Some people have excess fiber, the short chain fatty acids. Some people have low levels, and it's a wide variety. So it's not, we have never seen that all carnivores are low in short chain fatty acids because they're not eating enough fiber. So that itself in our practice has debunked that you need fiber to then produce short chain fatty acids for support. But so we'll do that test. And if there's like a deficiency or there's an excess in H. pylori, excess in candida, there's certain negative strains that might be in excess. And then there's parasites and other things, like E. coli is one that we see often. And we see it often in people that eat raw meat. And so it just takes one raw meat bad meal that can cause that. So that's why we are not fans of raw meat. I used to say, if you like raw meat, go for it. If that's how you feel better and you feel like the water soluble vitamins will be better for you, go ahead and eat it. But we have seen one too many people that have been eating just raw meat or mostly raw meat, and then their gut is messed up. They do the stool test and it's positive for E. coli. So I think personally, just from seeing that I do not recommend eating too raw of meat. And again, that's people's decision. But yeah, so then we'll do that. And then eventually, if we go like the strictest of the strictest, just beef, salt water, beef water, fasting, all of the modalities that we all know. If none of those work, we look into environment. So that's when we look at, are you suffering with heavy metals? Are you suffering with mold? Do you have Lyme? Do you have other things? Are you suffering from VOCs? Is there something in your environment? And I guess even in environment, you would also think of stressors, right? Like, are you living such a stress life? Do you have trauma from your past that is affecting you, that's releasing you naturally in your day, have way more cortisol because you have some trauma that your body remembers, that you wake up in the morning more high strung than the average person because of the trauma that your body has not let go of, but your brain doesn't necessarily remember it. So we look at all of those things. I know it's complex, but
I love it. It's so no, it's great. That's the exact same thing that I do with my clients. I always do the diet first, but then after that, I start looking into the environment after. If the diet alone and the digestion isn't on point, then there's gotta be some environmental toxin. I look into heavy metals and all that kind of stuff. So I love it. And the hair mineral test, do you use that? Do you think it's accurate? Do you recommend it?
Yeah, so there was a period I was going down the mineral balance a lot because we were seeing so many people struggle with the electrolytes. You know, Dr. Paul Saladino brought up that he changed from the carnivore diet because of electrolytes. And then I would see a subset of my community that was imbalanced with electrolytes. So we did do the hair mineral a lot. I had people on my channel talking about the mineral balance. So there is truth to it. So there's absolutely minerals that block each other. I know that there's a community right now that's super into supplementing copper, and I think it can be risky because it will deplete you of molybdenum. You need molybdenum to help you detox. So there's a lot of these nuanced things about minerals. My whole point is, if you feel mineral imbalance, you can take the test. You can take mineral supports because essentially it will give you a list of foods to take. But as we eat mostly meat, I have not seen the needle move enough with just adding more plants. I see it with the mineral supports, right? So taking more potassium, for example, for somebody that's a slow oxidizer. But what I have seen is when they get off the supplements, and let's say they don't fix their stress levels, because stress kills your mineral balance. And it eats up your salt. So imagine the people that are stressed and they're not consuming salt and they're not consuming any electrolytes. Those people are depleting themselves of minerals, and so then they'll feel electrolyte imbalances. But over time, one environmental illness, which is SIRS, the mold illness, that drastically affects your mineral balance. So that's where, again, that would be like a next step approach that we'll take. So if someone does the hair mineral, it's not balancing with the supplement protocol, then we will consider, I think you should check your osmolality or antidiuretic hormone. If that hormone is imbalanced, it causes you to retain, it will not allow you to retain water. So you'll feel thirsty all the time, but you keep peeing it out. And it's because your ADH marker is low. And that's a blood marker you could test at LabCorp Quest. And if that marker is low, you may be suffering from an environmental illness.
Fantastic. Do you see a lot of SIRS recently? I feel like there's a
I
lot
do.
more. And why do you think this is happening more frequently recently?
So obviously part of the reason the SIRS is now becoming more aware is because we're talking about it right in the community. There's like me that brought it up in just my community, and then the people that are getting diagnosed that are talking about it. I think it's a few reasons. I'm not going to use the word so that this video doesn't get censored, but so we obviously had that pandemic that happened. And so if you think about the immune system at large, SIRS is not just mold. The biggest way people know about SIRS is through the mold illness, water damage buildings that cause mold, but then mold is a fungus, but then there's also bacteria that can grow. So it's anything that's in your home. So then if you think about just the sequence of events that have happened, a pandemic came, some people got sick, and then they got long COVID. For some reason, they're not able to detox whatever virus was in their system. And now they're just sick all the time. Another subset got something they wanted you to inject in your cells, right? And then they got sick from that. Not everybody, but some people, again, another subset, not able to detox.
Blasphemy, Judy.
I know, whatever junk is in their system. I'm totally trying not to get this censored. So there's now these two populations, a subset that got sick from just the illness, a subset that got sick from getting that thing in their system and then not ever recuperating fully. And then we were told to stay in our indoor environments and stay home all the time. So we got used to working at home all the time and staying indoors. And we build our homes to be energy efficient now. And what that just means is it's super tight sealed. So if you have bad air in your home and you never open your windows because you were scared of the virus going around, now that air is just circulating in your house. And if your air tends to not be good, because you have water damage that's causing mold, or your HVAC system is moldy and you don't have like good filters, or you haven't cleaned it out, then you're just breathing in that same air over and over and over. And so I think it's a collection of all of that, that now there's a stronger, bigger, wider subset that's sick. And what SIRS does, it's just chronic inflammation. The core illness is that you have an inflammatory response that no longer can shut down. and that is now making you sick, and you think maybe it's hormones, maybe it's electrolytes, maybe it's your testosterone, or maybe it's that you can't sleep or you can't retain your water, or it's that your inflammatory system is not now like overburdened and it can't detox on its own. And so it's just showing and manifesting as multi-system illnesses. And I think it's because of that and all the things I mentioned, plus damage in your home, that now many people are like, the diet isn't fixing me alone.
Wow. Very, I mean, I love that that way of thinking about it. I didn't realize the association that the pandemic had with that, but that makes total sense to me. And you said it doesn't necessarily just have to be mold, right? It's not, doesn't only have to be a mold overgrowth, right? It can be bacterial, it can be so many things, right? With regards to just mold, do you do mold detox with your clients? Does that come up?
So the SIRS protocol, the one that I follow is from Dr. Shoemaker. If you have a certain genetic type, your body's not able to detox the mold. So there's people that I know specifically that will think their naturopath said, just move out of the house that's bad and then change your diet and go somewhere else, get on natural binders. Maybe glutathione's not a binder, but an antioxidant, but maybe they get on activated charcoal, chlorella, and they'll do that. So they'll move into a cleaner building and they feel better because yes, less is coming into their system, but they don't get fully better. And it's because there's a specific genetic subset. And that's what I was talking to Michaela Peterson about and how she shares nowadays. But it's a specific genetic subset that they're not able to detox the mold on their own. So they need support. And so there's specific binders that they are pharmaceutical grade, but what they do is they sit in your stomach and then you eat some fat, the bile gets stimulated, and in the bile there are the biotoxins of the bacteria, the mold, etc. And so that binder will pull it out of your system, let it stay in your gut, and then it poops it out. So that's where it's really important to poo every day, but it's that binder, but assuming you're in a cleaner environment. So those two itself can do wonders for people that are not fully getting better on carnivore.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I get also complex cases because I feel like most of us carnivore experts get the really hard ones because we're not the first choice, right? The first thing is like, if you're sick, you're gonna be like, I'm gonna try to be healthier, maybe eat more beautiful salads with some sugary salad dressing. That's usually what people go for first. So yeah, I do get people like with Lyme and with all kinds of issues where it's not, they come to me a lot of times for weight loss, but it's usually more than just weight loss, you know? And so that's exactly what I do. Yeah, so go ahead.
No, I was going to talk about Lyme. So so if we just logically think about it, there's a subset that gets Lyme and then they take antibiotics or they go through a protocol and they're better. But then there's a smaller subset that gets Lyme and it becomes chronic. And so I believe, and from the literature in the SIRS community, it's that the immune system has turned on and maybe they do kill off the Babesia or the Lyme or whatever, the tick bite, and they do all of that. But there's still some of the biotoxins in their system where if they have that genetic code, they're not able to detox it. I know it sounds so simple, but if they take that binder, maybe they'll feel better from chronic Lyme. And we've seen that in our practice. So I think a lot of why you can't get better compared to the average person, that's when I think people should first, you have to fix the diet. Like I truly believe you can't just do SIRS without the diet. I know there are people that get better, but I don't think they're fully better. But if you eat a carnivore diet, which is the lowest inflammation that supports a inflammatory illness, then you're just leaps and bounds ahead. And then from there, if you clean up your diet and you're still not better, then I think you should look into environment, especially if you have a chronic illness that no matter what is not going away.
Do you run genetic tests to see for that genetic code that codes for inefficient detox? And if so, or do you recommend one? And if so, which one?
So we SIRS lab work panel. Again, I struggle because there are people that I know for sure have SIRS. Like I can see it now based on their symptomology, but they are not fully carnivore yet. So I know the path could be just go to SIRS, but if they don't clean up their diet, I don't think they're going to be 100% better. We still say we do baby steps. So we say you may have SIRS, but we need you to go through the carnivore protocol first. And so a lot of people will then, like in a few months, will start doing the SIRS testing. But with all that said,
Right.
I'm sorry, we were talking about heavy metals,
Yeah,
but I think you asked me
the
something. The
genetic
genetic test.
test. Yeah.
So with blood work, with our SIRS blood work, you can go to a LabCorp or Quest, and there is a marker called the HLA, and I could send it to you, but that marker itself, I think it's like $200 just to test that marker, but it's part of our package that will tell you if you have the genetic susceptibility to not be able to detox. What I'm finding is there are other genetic tests that people take, the like 23andMe, or the ones where people are like, yeah, I'm like a poor MTHFR, I poor methylation. There is a similarity. So I don't know how that gene test and the HLA gene test are similar, but we have found that many people that fall into that HLA bucket that are positive for one of the genes are also poor methylators. So we find they are really high in homocysteine or they're low in methylfolate. So though that's an indicator for me. So that's another one of those cues. That's not, if somebody says I have the MTHFR gene, I'm a poor methylator, I don't think immediately SIRS, but now that is one of, if you have 10 or 20 other things, then I'm like, you should probably test for SIRS. So that's where I think, if people are really suffering from their environment and they clean up their diet, I just wonder how much of the environment, the wellness industry will be left because of all the biohacking. Like if you heal this, you don't need any biohacks anymore. Like honestly.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then with the heavy metals, we do testing. You could do blood work. There is hair mineral also shows it. Heavy metals is a little bit trickier. What we found is as people detox, sometimes taking a few supports, maybe some supplements, maybe some drops will help detox it. I know there are camps that say detox mercury first. We don't do it that way. So we do mercury afterward. But if you have like, I learned this from one of the SIRS doctors, but if you have like a little bit of aluminum, a little bit of other heavy metals, then taking Fiji water every day, and I forgot maybe you do like a 32-ounce amount of it. If you take it every day, it'll remove some of the heavy metals because it has a lot of silica, and the silica removes the heavy metals. It's so interesting. But yeah,
Oh,
that's
so
so
it
if you
is
think you have
worth
heavy
it.
metals, yeah,
The
it
four
is
dollar
worth just
bottles.
yeah, I know.
That's
But it
yeah.
won't remove mercury, but it'll remove maybe a little bit of, I think it might be a little bit of the lead as well as arsenic. And we actually see it even in carnivores. So it's just these heavy metals are in our waters. It's not so my first thing is always arsenic. Are you eating rice? Are you eating just grain-fed chicken? But oftentimes it's not those reasons. So it's just, unfortunately, it's
Water.
just in our environment.
Wow. Yeah, it's so funny when I was a doctoral student getting paid a stipend, I think it was like $1,700 when you had to pay rent and everything, and I feel like barely any money. And I would buy the Fiji waters because I loved how they looked like, and I would carry a Fiji water bottle and it was funny. But I stopped doing that. But that's very interesting. So silica in it. Okay. So with I'm done with my questions, but I do want to ask you about insurance. So if somebody wants to work with you, do they need to have insurance? Is there any way that they can get that covered?
Yeah, so the only thing we have tried, I would love to take insurance, and people with Medicare, Medi-Cal, they will reach out to us, and it's just, because I'm not licensed technically, we are not recognized by the insurance boards, and so we're considered alternative care. What we do though is we create insurance invoices with all the different requirements that certain insurance companies want. So we have like my certificate number, we have the CPT codes, we have a lot of other things that we share, but people still sometimes get denied because they say, no, this falls into nutrition. That is alternative care. But we have found that most of our blood work does get passed because it's through LabCorp. So the more strict insurance companies, sometimes they deny, but generally they'll get it covered as out of network coverage. And so the SIRS blood work, we have an invoice that we share if people are trying to push it through insurance.
That's great. I didn't know that you could do that. So that's fantastic. And yeah, I think that wraps it up for today. I love that we went a little bit deeper than the usual. I think the first few times we interviewed, we were like, basic diet and your story, which I kind of wanted, I guess, your story a little bit more because it's just so amazing. But I think I'm just gonna link the initial interview that I did with you so that people can go back and watch that first one where you share your story and how you came to a carnivore diet and became Judy Cho, Nutrition with Judy. But other than that, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we did this. I think the more interviews we do, the deeper we go into beyond just the carnivore animal-based diet. So thank you so much, Judy.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And just thank you for all the work that you're putting out there too. I love that you talk about sugar addiction because I think, or just addiction in general, I think so much of the community doesn't believe that food is an addiction. And I lived it and I went through it and it caused depression. And I chose my food addiction over my family and my kids. My kids would be sleeping and crying in the monitor. And I'm like, sorry, I have to finish this purge round first. It was so dark and hard. And I would cry doing it, but I couldn't, like my body would not allow me to not finish, or my mind, before taking care of my child crying. And I remember those days, and it's just, I know a lot of people aren't aware of it. I was forced to be and acknowledge my illness because I was in a hospital. But I just think if people are aware of how much do we turn to food when we're stressed or celebrating, and if we know that we are using bad foods to, I guess, subdue our emotions, that's like the first step in healing. And it's just knowing that these sugary snacks, it's not about, just find the balance. Like it's ideal, but it's, if you're using it as a dependency source, it's something that needs to be healed, because I know the chains from it and I know how dark of a place I was in. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. And as you talk about it, coming from a place of education and research, and then, just being a more well-rounded person, I think it gives people like, okay, I can acknowledge this. And somebody like Sarah sharing, who looks like a very normal person, then maybe it's okay that I acknowledge, yeah, I'm a food addict, and it's okay. We just need to heal from the foods that we've been raised to take, and it's okay, but we just need to acknowledge it.
Yeah, the denial is absolutely real, though it took me a very long time to acknowledge it, even to myself first. Even after spending 5 years in my dissertation, was all about addiction. I spent 5 years writing and conducting the study and then defending it, So I knew the addiction literature, specifically food addiction. I knew it like the back of my hands, but I still was doing the keto treats and creating keto desserts and posting them. I wrote a keto dessert cookbook. It's on Amazon right now. Can you
Oh, really?
believe it?
That's so
Yeah. Just trying to figure out ways that are not as bad as cake and cookies, but it was still a treat, And it took me a very long time. And I think for me, it clicked once I read the studies with the heroin, showing how sugar, the sweet taste, was far more addictive than heroin. I don't know, it just shook me to my core. I don't know why the cocaine studies didn't do that to me, because the cocaine is okay.
yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, it is so addictive. And the thing that I always said to, so I'm not going to say names, but there are people in my family that were addicted to drugs and alcohol. And I mean, this is like the sides that I don't share, but, and I used to complain to them saying, I know your drug habit was bad and it was hard and you lost so much in your life, but it is not fair. Like you just have to say no to drugs, and even if you want it, like you just abstain and you could forever be fine. I cannot abstain from food. Like I have to eat food every day, and every day I'm deciding what food to put in my mouth. Is that a risk that I'm going to go off the deep end? And so forever, like I used to wish, and I would get mad at God and say, why can't I just have an IV that injects food in me? Because it is so sucky to have to deal with my addiction every time I make a decision of what goes in my mouth. And so when I found carnivore, it was a saving grace for me. And now I can dabble in other things, but it took me years and years of healing and abstinence and finding health and spirit and lots of other things. But it is a very real addiction and it is so hard to overcome. And so when you just say, you know what, carbs are a drug, all carbohydrates, anything that's a stimulus, that's too much sugar that causes your brain to go bing, right? Any of that, if you remove that, maybe just for a short period, don't think it's forever, but maybe for a year, 6 months, maybe you start with just a month and then you keep pushing the needle to move further and further of abstinence. But you can heal, because it took me to heal, because I used to think I got the worst addiction that any human can get, being a food addiction, because we have to still test our addiction every single day with every single bite we put in our mouth, and it sucks.
Yeah, and nobody believes you, and they push
Right.
the food on you, and it's being marketed to you at every place. It's actually being actively recommended by dietitians, you know?
Crazy.
Anyway, Judy,
Well,
thank you again. And I'm so excited for the Carnivore Summit. It is free. I will post my code as well so people
okay.
can use that so that they can get a discount on the bonuses. And it is going to go out, I think, this Sunday. So like the day before
Okay,
the
perfect.
Carnivore Summit goes live. So yeah, that would be
Yay.
great. And also, where can people find you directly and connect with you? And I'll make sure also I'll post your links in the description box below.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure and so fun talking to you. I love it. I love like we literally, guys, we talked for like an hour
I
before we
know.
recorded, and she's like, "Do you have time to record still?" So, I mean, it's just fun. Well, thank you so much. And if people make sure you use Sarah's links so that then you can also get the welcome gifts. There's like 5 things that you could get for free. So make sure we have like a skincare guide that's for free that we normally sell. So please make sure to get your welcome gifts as well. So you can find me at Nutrition with Judy and Carnivore Cure. I wrote a book. It's called Carnivore Cure. And so anything Nutrition with Judy on all social media platforms is there. I have a free newsletter. And then I have a podcast, Nutrition with Judy, as well as Cutting Against the Grain. So you can find me anywhere. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is always so much fun.
It really is. And that's another thing that we talked about, right? Because when I see just the graphs, and I didn't, the first time I ever met you was the first interview. I didn't realize how fun and just how approachable you were, and just how positive. And I keep telling you this, you have this energy, this positivity about you, this energy that I absolutely love. And I just, it is always a blast to have these chats with you. So thanks again, Judy, and thank you everybody for sticking with us till the end. I hope you enjoyed this type of content. If you did, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell icon so YouTube alerts you every time I post a new video. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.
Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this interview. I know it shares a little bit more about me. I tried not to make this YouTube channel or podcast about me, and just more of how I can serve people with the content and education and information. And yeah, I was telling Sarah offline, but I am very outgoing, and I just didn't want to make my channel about my personality. Now, I know a lot of people will disagree with what I'm sharing, but I really wanted people to take serious the information about carnivore, how carnivore can support gut function. And I know sometimes lately science is wonky, but if you can bring the science and prove it with evidence-based research, I was hoping that there would then be a lot more respect for the carnivore diet. And so that's why, if you go back to my older videos, I seem super serious, and I didn't even have my hair down, for example. But I appreciate people like Sarah that gives me different perspectives. Okay, guys, make sure to eat a lot of meat, take care of your bodies, because it is the only place you have to live. I will talk to you later. Bye, guys.